Dr. Elias Kane woke up choking on his own breath. The room was white, sterile, and spinning. Tubes snaked out of his arms. His head felt like someone had scooped out his brain and replaced it with wet cotton. He blinked at the ceiling lights, trying to remember his name. Elias Kane. That sounded right. But why was he here? And where was here? He sat up slowly. The bed was in a small medical bay. Two other beds stood nearby. In them lay two figures, still and pale. One had a name tag, Dr. Lena Torres. The other, Commander Marcus Hale. Both were dead. Elias stared at the corpses for a long minute. Then the panic hit. He ripped out the 4 lines, staggered to a console, and started punching buttons at random. The ship's computer responded in a calm female voice. "Welcome back, Dr. Kane. You have been in induced coma for 4 years, 8 months, and 12 days. Current location, Tau Ceti system. Mission, Project Echo." "Echo?" Elias muttered. "What the hell is Project Echo?" Memories came in fragments like puzzle pieces dropped from a great height. He remembered being a middle school science teacher in Chicago. Kids loved his weird lectures about extremophiles, life that didn't need water the way we thought. Then the world changed. The sun started dimming. Not much at first, but enough for scientists to notice. Infrared telescopes picked up a strange line stretching from the sun toward Venus. They called it the Petrova line. Astrophage. That was the name they eventually gave the microscopic monster. A single-celled organism that devoured stellar energy like a parasite. It reproduced furiously in the carbon dioxide-rich upper atmosphere of Venus, then swarmed back to the sun, stealing its output. At the current rate, Earth had maybe 30 years before a new ice age wiped out most life. Billions would die. Governments panicked. They handed near-dictatorial power to one woman, Dr. Nadia Voss, former head of the European Space Agency. She had one mission: save humanity no matter the cost. Legal immunity, unlimited budget, no oversight. Project Echo was the Hail Mary pass. 3 crew members sent in a one-way ship to the only nearby star system that wasn't dimming. Tau Ceti, 12 light-years away. The ship carried a lab, probes, and enough astrophage fuel, harvested from the very plague itself, to reach relativistic speeds. The crew would study the system, find out why Tau Ceti was untouched, and beam the data home via automated probes. The crew wasn't expected to return. Elias remembered arguing with Voss. He had refused. He'd even tried to run. But she'd had him drugged and shoved into the coma anyway. The other 2, Torres and Hale, had volunteered. They were the best. Now they were dead, their bodies unable to survive the long sleep. Elias buried them in space. He said a few quiet words, then floated back inside the ship, alone with the weight of extinction on his shoulders. The ship's AI helped him piece together the rest. He was now in orbit around a planet they'd labeled Adrian, 4th planet in the Tau Ceti system. Astrophage was everywhere here too, but something was keeping its population in check. The local star burned bright. Days blurred into experiments. Elias was a biologist at heart. He grew astrophage samples, tested them, tried to understand their metabolism. They were incredible, tiny power plants that converted stellar energy into mass and propulsion with insane efficiency. They could survive vacuum, radiation, and extreme temperatures. But why wasn't Tau Ceti dying? One day, while running scans, the ship detected another vessel approaching. It was small, irregular, and moving with impossible precision. It wasn't human. Elias's heart hammered. First contact, or first hostile contact. He had no weapons. The ship had a small spin drive for maneuvering, but that was it. The alien ship, Elias nicknamed it the Blip, hovered nearby. It extended a long arm and docked with the Echo using some kind of universal adapter. No airlock breach. just a gentle clunk. Then the knocking started. It came from the hull, rhythmic, musical thumps. Elias suited up, grabbed a toolkit, and went to the docking port. Through the small window he saw something. It looked like a five-legged spider the size of a Labrador, made entirely of rocky, crystalline material. No eyes. Its skin was segmented plates that shifted and clicked. It tapped again, producing complex patterns of sound that vibrated through the metal. Elias swallowed. Okay, hi. He rigged up a microphone and speaker system on his side. The alien responded with musical notes, pure tones, chords, melodies. Took days, but Elias wrote a translation program. The alien's language was based on musical intervals and rhythms. It had no concept of written language in the human sense. Everything was auditory and mathematical. Finally, they could talk. The alien introduced itself with a soaring arpeggio that the software rendered as, "I am Rocky." Elias laughed despite everything. "Rocky? Really? Fine. I'm Elias Kane. From Earth." Rocky came from a planet orbiting 40 Eridani, a system about 16 light-years from Earth, but only a short hop from Tau Ceti in interstellar terms. His people called their world arid. It was also dying. Their star was infected with the same astrophage plague. Rocky had been sent on a similar one-way mission. His crewmates had died of radiation poisoning years earlier. He'd been waiting alone in the Tau Ceti system for decades. Time dilation made the math weird. Rocky was an engineer, not a biologist. He built things, amazing things. His ship used xenonite, a material stronger than anything humans had grown in microgravity. He breathed ammonia. He saw through echolocation and could feel magnetic fields. Gravity on his world was much higher. He found Earth normal gravity amusingly weak. The two of them bonded almost instantly over the shared nightmare. Their home stars were being eaten alive by the same microscopic enemy. They agreed to work together. Together, they explored Adrian. The planet had an atmosphere rich in the chemicals astrophage loved, yet the parasite numbers stayed stable. Something was eating them, or killing them, or preventing reproduction. They hypothesized a predator. Building equipment was the hard part. Rocky couldn't enter the Echo. His ammonia atmosphere would kill Elias, and Elias's oxygen would be toxic to him. They communicated through the docking tunnel, passing tools and samples via a small airlock Rocky had improvised. Elias grew cultures. Rocky machined parts with impossible precision. They built probes, sensors, and eventually a 10-kilometer-long tether made of xenonite cable, strong enough to dip into Adrian's upper atmosphere without snapping. The dive was terrifying. Elias piloted the Echo while Rocky controlled the tether from his ship. They scooped up atmospheric samples at high speed. When they reeled it back, the sample container was full of something new. A microbe, smaller than astrophage. It attacked the Star Eaters, injecting them with a toxin or hijacking their metabolism. It was the natural check on the astrophage population here. They called the new organism Tamoeba. Joy turned to despair when they tested it. Tamoeba died instantly in Earth-like conditions. It needed Adrian's exact atmospheric mix, pressure, and temperature. It wouldn't survive the trip home. They tried everything. Genetic engineering, Elias's specialty. Chemical stabilizers. Protective coatings. Nothing worked. The predator was too fragile. Weeks turned into months. They argued, laughed, despaired, and kept going. Rocky taught Elias about Iridian engineering. Elias taught Rocky about biology and relativity. The Iridians hadn't discovered Einstein's theories yet. Their physics were wildly different. Rocky's ship had way more astrophage fuel than needed because he hadn't accounted for time dilation properly. Enough for both ships to return home. One night, ship time, Elias sat alone, staring at the bright Tau Ceti through the viewport. "I can't do this," he whispered. Memories of his refusal flooded back. He had begged Voss not to send him. He had a life, students, a cat. He wasn't a hero. He was just a teacher who liked weird science. But here he was. Rocky's voice came through the translator, a gentle major chord. "Friend Elias, we will find way, or we die trying." The same thing. They kept experimenting. The breakthrough came from an accident, a contaminated sample. Amoeba exposed to trace amounts of a compound Rocky had synthesized for hull repair. The predator didn't just survive. It thrived in conditions closer to Earth's. The compound acted like a shield, protecting its delicate membranes. They refined it, tested it, grew batches. It worked. They had a weapon. Now came the hard part: delivery. Earth needed the solution delivered in a form that could be mass-produced and released into the upper atmosphere and near the sun. The probes could carry data, but they needed a living, stable strain. Rocky offered his extra fuel. Elias could go home. Rocky would take the solution to Arid. But there was a problem. The Echo spin drive was damaged during the tether experiment. It needed repairs that only Rocky could do, repairs that would expose him to lethal radiation doses. Rocky didn't hesitate. "I fix. You go home. Tell your people. Save them." Elias argued. They fought in their strange musical English hybrid. In the end, Rocky won. He was the better engineer. He knew the risks. While Rocky worked on the Echo, Elias prepared the biological payload, vials of protected amoeba, instructions for culturing atmospheric dispersal models. He recorded everything. The probes would carry the data home years before he could. The repairs took days. Rocky's health declined visibly. His Rocky plates dulled. His movements slowed. But he finished. The two ships undocked. "Rocky," Elias said, voice cracking, "thank you for everything." Complex melody came back, something warm and sad. "Friend Elias, you are good biologist. Better friend. Go. Save Earth. I save Arid. Maybe one day we meet again." Elias watched the blip accelerate away toward 40 Eridani, carrying the hope of an entire species. He set course for home. The trip back was long and lonely. He grew the amoeba cultures, ran simulations, wrote reports he hoped someone would read. He thought about his students, about Voss, about the two dead crewmates who had believed in the mission more than he had. Time dilation meant that while 13 years passed for him, decades would pass on Earth. He might return to a very different world, or none at all. The automated probes launched first, carrying the critical data. With luck, they'd arrive years earlier and give humanity a head start. Elias went into another induced coma for the long deceleration burn. He woke up only when the ship detected the solar system. The sun was still dim, but not as bad as projected. The probes had worked. Teams on Earth and in space had already begun releasing early strains of the protected amoeba. The dimming had slowed. Ice sheets were stabilizing. It wasn't over, but humanity had a fighting chance. The Echo was met by a flotilla of ships. Elias was brought aboard a medical vessel. Doctors, scientists, and officials crowded around him. Dr. Nadia Voss was there, older, grayer, but still sharp. She looked at him with something like pride and regret. "You ran, Elias," she said quietly. "I made you come anyway. I'm sorry. And I'm not." He smiled tiredly. "It worked. That's what matters." Years passed. Earth recovered. The amoeba spread, controlled the astrophage, and the sun brightened again. Life returned to normal, messy, beautiful, human normal. Elias became a celebrity, then a teacher again. He wrote books, gave lectures, never forgot the friend he left behind. One quiet evening, decades later, he received a message from an international observatory. They had detected a new signal from the direction of 40 Eridani. It was faint, encoded in musical tones, translated to a single, repeating phrase, "Friend Elias, Erid is bright. Thank you." Elias Kane sat on his porch, looking up at the full, healthy moon, and laughed until he cried. Somewhere out there, in the light of a saved star, a five-legged rocky spider was probably humming the same tune. Humanity wasn't alone anymore, and the universe, for once, had been kind.